Hello and Namaste. This is Rajendra Ghimire, one of the organizers of TEDxMaitighar and a host for today. It is with great pleasure that I would like to welcome everyone tuning in for the TEDcast event organized by TEDxMaitighar. TEDxMaitighar is an officially licensed TED event which aims to bring the spirit of TED missions of ideas worth spreading to local communities around the globe. Having already organized a TEDx event and several TED circles, we bring to you the second season of TEDcast series. TEDcast is an interactive live idea sharing session initiated by TEDxMaitighar with the aim of connecting minds. In this series, we plan to invite personalities from different fields to impart their knowledge, ideas on their respective expertise. This series aims to bridge the idea gap and provide a live virtual platform to interact directly between the invited speakers and audiences. With a live broadcast in place, TEDcast aims to promote discussion related to the idea that guest speakers will impart. Also, we would like to thank StreamAd for supporting us by providing these premium services. Today, we have with us Prakriti Bhattrai Basnet as the speaker of TEDcast organized by TEDxMaitighar. Prakriti Bhattrai Basnet, 21 years old, is the chairperson of Political Literacy for Women. Political Literacy for Women aims to increase Nepalese women's knowledge about politics and is designed to provide learning, networking, and leading spaces for Nepalese women. The campaign has successfully been able to educate more than 100 young girls and women about the basics of politics. Political Literacy for Women advocates for meaningful participation of women over mere representation of women in political spaces. She does not associate herself to any political party and works as an independent entity alongside her team. She has raised her concern and shared her insights regarding the involvement of women in politics on platforms such as UNICEF South Asian Parliamentarian Platform for Children, Barriers and Possibilities for Women Political Participation, South Asian Dialogue, South Asian Women Politician COVID-19 Response, COVID-19 and Women, and many more. She studied leadership, organizing and action from Harvard Kennedy School. Without further ado, it is my pleasure to welcome Ms. Prakriti Bhattrai Basnet to the TEDcast organized by TEDxMaitighar. Welcome to our event, ma'am.
Thank you so much for such an elaborative introduction. I'm deeply humbled. Thank you so much.
There is a Chinese proverb, a journey of 1,000 miles begin with a single step. So, before we move on to other questions, I am sure our viewers would like to know more about you and your journey in terms of idea of political literacy of women. Could you please tell us a bit about it and the motivating factor along with the incident that drove you to start this journey, ma'am?
Well, sure. Probably I'll just start with sharing my screen. I think I've brought my story in a similar pattern. So I'll just move on with the story. Okay. As per the introduction and everything, I'm so deeply humbled and thank you so much for inviting me in TEDcast. I don't know if my ideas are worth spreading, but let us see how the idea came up and a little bit about me. Okay. You have already given a brief introduction of myself, so I'd like to introduce to everyone again. Namaste, my name is Prakriti Bhattarai Basnet. I'm the chairperson of Political Literacy for Women. I also am working at Nagarik Network and I'm planning to start a socio-political talk show. So this is me. I'll just rapidly move to the story of political literacy for women, as you asked. Political literacy for women, the idea started at, I think, 2018. So I vividly remember 2018. It was election season. The roads were filled with promising yet cunning faces of candidates. I was hyped like an election junkie that we all are when it's election season. I was hyped. I was checking news every other second, writing blog, debating with my family members about the political candidates. And amongst the election chaos, I was also volunteering for one of the candidates' campaign. I signed up for it and was responsible for leading a door-to-door campaign at one of the most educated places of Kathmandu. During the campaign, I got to interact with many housewives, mothers, working women, and young girls. Each day, I would meet women who had never voted. They didn't even have a slightest idea about whom to vote or why vote at all. And even the ones who voted had their voting cards made so that they can vote for the candidates that their husbands liked. So this was happening in one of the most educated places of Kathmandu, one of the most urban areas of Kathmandu. Seeing this political illiteracy amongst women, it kind of frustrated me. Meanwhile, everybody was complaining at the time about the fact that women are not showing up in politics. Even I was complaining at the time, but nobody was, working to make the situation better by educating women from the grassroots. Then I promised myself that I will try educating and empowering as many women as possible, starting from young girls like me. It doesn't mean that I know everything about politics, but while I was in this journey of learning, I so wanted other girls to join me in this journey. So that is where the idea of political literacy for women started. And right now we are working for meaningful participation over mere representation of women in politics. So that is the story of political literacy for women. I grew up in a family where only my father and uncles used to talk about how the country should be like. My mother and my aunties, they never talked about, how country should be. I never heard them talking about it. And me growing up, I was so much interested into socio-political activities and socio-political issues and what's happening in my country. When I was in bachelor's, none of my friends were interested. The topics that the guys talked about in a coffee place or tea spot, they were talking about politics, but girls, they were not talking about politics, but I was deeply interested in it. And later I found out that girls don't talk about politics because we are culturally, we culturally grew up that way, and it needs to change. So that is how political literacy for women started, and we are working on it. I don't know how capable we are and how far we have come, but that is the story of political literacy for women for now.
Amazing, isn't it? In the meantime, I would also like to request every viewers who are with us, joining with us through the Facebook Live, to leave their queries if they have any queries in the comment section. Moving on, there are multiple, at times overlapping, contradictory, and even similar perspective and definition of politics offered by different individuals. Is there any particular definition that you admire? In general terms, what does politics mean to you?
Okay, that is a very, it's a very philosophical question, because politics itself developed from a particular philosophy, and me being, homegrown, home-studied, homeschooled student of politics. In my opinion, politics is nothing but just a collection of system, a collection of activities and philosophies which aims at improving lives. I think that is the only purpose of politics. It is the collection of system, activities and philosophies that, which works better for the geography. But I think everything in politics aims for acquiring power, but at the same time at improving lives as well.
Yes, indeed. Adding on to that, youths are considered as the greatest assets of any country. Youth force is believed to be the dynamic, creative, influential and powerful force. There is a beautiful and popular line in Nepali. युवा नै हो देशको शक्ति, युवा नै हो देशको जरा, युवा शक्ति उठे मात्र थर्कन्छ बनकन्दरा. In this regard, how essential is it for youth to know about and get involved in politics? Do you think political education should be considered in the national curriculum of secondary levels in Nepal?
Yes, definitely. It's often, I remember studying about democracy, and I think, of course, if you have studied in Nepali board, then all of you will resonate it to the fact that we studied about democracy, legislative, executive, judiciary, we learned about our rights, but we didn't actually learn about the term politics. The term politics was never introduced to us. I remember writing in I don't know what's it called now, but we used to exchange diaries with our friends, and we used to write about each other in those books. And there was this column where you had to write about politics, and all of us wrote politics is a dirty game without even really knowing what politics was when I look back. So, Nepal comprises of 40.3% of young people now, and the demographic dividend of our country is at its highest, which means the population of young people is highest at this point of time. If young people won't act not only in political sector but in every sector, then the country is very young now. But if we want to start acting now, then the country will get old without even being rich. So it's important that we act now, so that when we are old, we become rich, not that we are poor. And in terms of politics, I think if you go into the records of different political parties and the membership that are being taken, even though the population of young people is increasing, the number of the membership in political parties is decreasing, because more young people are not applying for membership or taking membership of political parties. This vividly shows the scenario of how the next generation of leaders are not prepared, especially women. They are not talking about politics. And even if with the Enough is Enough campaign, if we go and look back, the Enough is Enough campaign that is happening around, it was so young people participated so well because there was this term called non-partition, because the movement was not associated to many political parties. Young people were attracted to the movement because there was no political involvement. So this really shows, the political scenario of Nepal. But I also want young people to understand that if we don't get into active politics, and if we don't get into the partisan politics, get into political party and get there, because our, the government runs in such a way that you can't be a leader unless you go through the party struggle. So it's high time that young people start getting into those political parties and grabbing those power. If we look back to the history of any country throughout the world, power is not given, power is taken. So young people need to come up, and I'm so glad that I think now young people have started coming up, talking about issues. Even in this lockdown, we saw numerous, I think, large mass of young people coming up and talking about politics, about what's going wrong in country. Everybody have started to become vocal, but we also need to take action at the same time. I think the political participation is increasing without young people knowing that it is political participation. So I think we are getting there, but we need to understand the fact that things can't be changed unless young people get into active politics and organized politics. So that is my view on that.
Of course. I'm sure, along with myself, most of our viewers are curious to know more about your journey. Could you please further elaborate your journey towards the political literacy of women?
Yes, sure. I'm just sharing my screen. Is my screen visible?
Yes.
Yes. Okay, so I talked about the journey of political literacy for women, but today I will specifically talk about the topic, why I get pissed when they say we have a female president, reasons on why I am angry. My friends usually complain that whenever I'm debating or whenever I'm talking about women in politics, I'm really angry. And I agree with them. I'm angry most of the time because since I started the journey of political literacy for women with my team members, the first comment that we got, and the maximum number of comments that we got, surrounded around the fact that we have a female president. And the scenario of women in politics is different. Our president does not represent women in politics in Nepal. So I really used to get pissed when people used to say that political literacy for women is not required, because in Nepal we already have reservation, we already have female president. Why are you guys coming up with this idea and dividing the society in terms of gender? They saw the force that we created as political literacy for women was seen as, something that is creating social stratification in society using the term gender. So I really used to get pissed when they say, even now when they give reasons like you have a female president, I really get pissed. So today's presentation, today my talk will be regarding this topic, that why I get pissed when they say we have a female president. So before getting on to the negative parts and why I am pissed, I would also like to acknowledge the achievements that we have had so far. First, we have a female president. We have a female speaker of the parliament. We had female former chief justice. We have 33% representation in parliament, and our constitution has guaranteed 33% representation in all state mechanisms and the structures of political parties as well. However, we have not been able to achieve this 33% inside political parties, but we have been able to maintain 33% in parliament and state mechanisms, which is already a milestone. In the local government that we just formed in 2018-19, the percentage of women in local government right now is 40.9%. If we look at the statistics in terms of South Asia, in terms of the world itself, this is exceptional participation of women in politics. However, this number and these achievements does not represent the exact scenario of women in politics in Nepal. So I'll dissect this myth of, I'll dissect this myth that young people and Nepali as a whole, how they have started believing that young women and women as a whole are coming into politics. This is a myth because there are a lot of problems that is happening in grassroots. So I'll start with, what was the key to success? What is the key to success that we were able to bring this in? I'm always, whenever I go to international platforms, I'm so happy that I can talk about these achievements. I can tell to people that Nepal has achieved this significantly in such a small period of time. I'm so happy to share this. And as I go through and when we conducted study inside our team, what we found out was the key to success was nothing but Article 35 of our interim constitution, which ensured proportional representation. And the other reason, which was the key to success, was the strong presence of election commission in Nepal. I'm pretty much sure that the viewers and you as well already know about proportional representation. But what happens in Nepal is before elections, the political parties are supposed to, give a list, which is also known as Banda Patra, to election commission. In that list, of politicians or samsads who are going to be selected through proportional representation, the politicians who are going to get selected from proportional representation are submitted to election commission, and amongst that list there 50% is ensured by election commission. Until and unless the political parties submit and say that and ensure election commission that in that list there is 50% women, after that only election commission allows the political parties to get into election. So that is the major key to success, the strong presence of election commission in our country. Similarly, the interim constitution, which guarantees proportional representation. I'm quite sure that all of you are aware about first past the post and proportional representation system during the elections. So during the elections, FPTP means that the party will provide you with the ticket and you will run for elections, right? So proportional representation means the reservation quota that we all talk about. So what political parties usually do is, in order to maintain the 33% representation inside parliament or other state structures, what they do is they don't give tickets. That means that women don't run in elections through direct elections or through FPTPs, right? They are given, spaces in proportional representation part. They are not really given tickets, and as a result, they don't run for elections. However, there is 33% because of the proportional representation only. So this is the situation of our country. So what this tells us is that our political parties are not committed to the principle of inclusion, but they they are only committed to the legal and constitutional mechanisms, right? So if our political parties actually believed in 33% representation or inclusion, it would be, the scenario would be different, right? Inside the political parties itself, there would be 33%, but 33% and women representation are happening in those spaces only where there is legal and constitutional mechanisms, which means जानेर चाहिँ जबरजस्ती गर्न लागिएको छ संविधानले, जबरजस्ती चाहिँ by book you have to have that women participation भनेर compulsion गरिएको छ, त्यो ठाउँमा मात्रै there is women participation. There is no women participation spaces where there is no body like election commission itself which is looking after it. So what I'm trying to see here is our political parties are not committed to the principle of inclusion. It is happening only because there are certain, legal and constitutional mechanisms that needs to be done before getting into power. So this really shows that 33% is nothing but is compulsion. It came out of compulsion. Women's representation in politics is because of compulsion. And a lot of people come to me and debate about, whether there should be representation of women or whether there should be quota system, because quota system is actually degrading the, quality of our parliamentarians and stuff like that. But these statistics shows that our parties are not committed to the principle of inclusion. I'll provide you with a lot of evidences regarding how our parties do not believe in principle of inclusion. Some disturbing patterns. First pattern, when the civil war was happening in our country, I was probably studying in 2-3 class. So I still remember there was this picture of young women with in one shoulder there was this big gun, and in the other shoulder she was carrying a little baby with her, and it was the times of during civil war. So that is the first image that I have of civil war. But now that political party, when came into power, Nepal Communist Party is in power right now. And when it is in power, now that we were expecting at least a woman in the secretariat of Nepal Communist Party. Even after that 10-year-long, contribution of women in civil war, now that when the political party have formed its secretariat, there is not even one woman who represents that struggle. If we go back and look at the statistics, we can see that during the insurgency period, 1/3 of the Maoist cadets were women. So where is our representation? The political party which went in power because of women, 1/3 of women supporting them in the civil war, now that they are in power, there are 0 women in the secretariat of Nepal Communist Party. And it's not because there are no women in Nepal Communist Party. There are very educated and very capable women inside Nepal Communist Party, but they are not given positions. This is the scenario of Nepal, and that is why I say our political parties are not committed to the principle of inclusion. Similarly, it's not only the political party which is in power right now, but also the opposition. In opposition as well, there is only one woman as office bearer of Nepal Congress Party, and that too in the treasurer's position. How in school and college, I still remember there used to be small clubs, small student clubs, and the girls who used to run for president, if they don't win the elections, they were given the treasurer's position. It was just a proxy position kind of situation, and it is similar situation is happening in Nepal Congress Party. So today I have brought only the statistics of 2 political parties, but I think this kind of gives you an overall scenario of how women in politics are considered, just a tool. Nepal Communist Party and Nepal Congress Party kind of represents the other political parties in Nepal, because we live in multi-party system, and in each political party, in all political parties, if you see, then you can see there are no significant office bearers, women who are office bearers. And what I have always believed is, in order to have strong presence of women in different state mechanisms or in powerful positions, what we need need to make sure is that women are in powerful positions within political parties as well. If women are not in strong positions or in leadership position inside political parties, they can barely have that leadership capacities, or they can barely have that power to make decisions. So what I've always advocated for is that inside political parties as well, there should be enough women in leadership positions. As now that I look back and now that I have studied, if we go through our constitution says that there should be women in all party structures, inside the party as well, in all party levels and all party structures, there should be 33% women. The constitution guarantees it. But all of our political parties, they are unconstitutional. All political parties in Nepal are unconstitutional because there is no 33% women working as office bearers inside these political parties. But nobody is talking about it. And this is why political literacy for women is here, to make these political parties aware that you are unconstitutional. Please start working. This is unconstitutional.Moving on. So, as I was talking before, there is difference in parliament and political parties. Why were we able to have 33% in parliament, in 33% in state mechanisms, but we are not being able to establish 33% women in political parties? There is either no women or there is one woman inside political parties structure as well. So why there is difference in this scenario? The scenario is different because it's not compulsory inside political parties. It's not compulsory. Election bodies such as election commission are not there to look after political parties to see whether there is 33% women or not. So this actually shows. So these are my evidences which suggest that political parties still are not believing in the principle of inclusion. They are just doing things that needs to be done in order to get into power. They are not considering a lot of things. So few other disturbing patterns that I'll give to you guys in terms of women participation in Nepal. So after this provision was introduced in the interim constitution, after that 10 cabinets are formed. That means that 10 prime ministers have changed, and within that period of time, these 10 cabinets, none of them have 33% women. And similarly, you can also see that there is no, proper insurance regarding. It's very difficult in Nepal to have citizenship from your mother's name. If we had enough women in powerful party structures inside parliament, in very stronger positions, probably till today we should not have been fighting the fight of citizenship. This is happening. The important issues like this, we have to fight till this date because we have not been able to establish women in very stronger positions of political parties. Similarly, another disturbing patterns. Till this date, there are no women political appointments made in public enterprises owned by government. Nepal Television, Radio Nepal, and Rashtriya Samachar Samiti. These are few examples of the public enterprises that our government owns. But till this date, no women political appointments have been made in this position since Nepal Television existed. This kind of shows that it's not that there are no women who are not capable of leading Nepal Television or Radio Nepal. We have a lot of women who are capable of doing this, who are capable of leading these political and public enterprises. But till this date, imagine when Nepal Television was opened. From that day till now, in this 21st century, when we have the world's, we are the world's youngest federal democracy, till this date, there are no women political appointments in these kind of public enterprises. Similarly, in the recent ambassadorial recommendation list, there was only one woman. I personally know a lot of women who should have been in that ambassadorial recommendation list, but there is only one woman. And when even her name was seen in the list, the media wrote news in such a way, such a derogatory way. They talked about the boyfriends that she had, the clothes that she wore, but not about the capacities that she has or the education qualifications she has. So this is the kind of situation that is happening in Nepal. So 33%, my dear Nepalese young people, is a hoax. the topic that we are talking about, that women are coming up elections, women are leading offices and stuff like that, it's a hoax. Because when we look at the overall scenario, things are different. We have a long fight to fight against these political parties to establish women in stronger political posts inside the political parties and in other state mechanisms as well. So women in local government. People are very proud that we have 40.9% representation in local government after the recent election that happened. I am also very proud. But even in this 40.9% representation, 91% of this representation was seen in deputy position. These deputy positions are not as powerful as the major positions. Women are given deputy positions where there is no power. This 40.9% representation doesn't really reflect the situation of women. 40.9% representation sounds really amazing, but amongst its 40.9% as well, there are, amongst this 40.9% women, 91% are in deputy position. That means we don't have power. So we also need to enhance women's presence in local government in order to actually ensure women's participation in politics as well. Similarly, when we talk about representation in politics, representation of women in politics, we also need to look at the scenario inside the women representation as well. So what we have seen is, amongst the 9% of women that hold the major positions such as mayor, such as the chairperson of a ward, these kind of women, when we look into their biodata and when we went through the researches, what we found out was most of these women belonged to the Brahmin or the Khas family. So when we as women are advocating about representation of women in politics should be as similar to men, when we are advocating about it, we also need to understand that Nepal being diverse country, we also have to understand the fact that we also need to take care of the representation within us. Otherwise, living in a diverse country, it will be just a bluff. We asking about representation, but we not taking care of representation within us. So this is the kind of scenario that we have.
Indeed. Moving on.
Yes, I think my internet is a little bit not working. I'll just be back in a minute.
Of course. Moving on, I would like to put forward another question. There are different student unions of various political parties running within the country. Do we have to join those student union to enter politics, What do you think is the pathway for someone to enter into politics? At an individual level, how can youth, regardless of gender, contribute to achieving a more inclusive, more participatory political process in present context?
Okay, so can you please repeat the question because I didn't get it once again, please?
Of course. Do we have to join those student unions to enter the politics? What do you think? Is there any other pathways for someone to enter into politics?
Okay, this question is something that we have been pondering a lot. What is the way to get into politics? But my answer is there is no other way rather than going there and getting the political membership of different political parties. And especially if you are young people and if you are a student, you have to get into student politics because there should have been this provision of this lateral invasion of young people. I mean, people from different aspects coming into political parties. But what happens in Nepal is you have to go through student politics, and even now, young parliamentarians and young ministers and young politicians, if we see inside the parliament or anywhere else, what we have seen is they have gone through this whole process of getting into student politics. So I genuinely think that once we get into the student politics, we kind of understand what the scenario is in national level as well. So for young people, I think it is important to get into student unions. But there are a lot of views regarding whether student unions should exist or not. But for me, I am for student unions inside universities and colleges. However, I might not, agree with the approaches that they are using inside the college premises. But I am always for the student unions inside colleges, because I think that is where student politics and politics as a whole starts. Because MPs like Gagan Thapa and somebody that we always have looked up to, a lot of ministers as well, all of them, they have gone through that process of student politics, and I think it kind of makes you ready for national politics as well. And in the context of Nepal, that is the only way how new people get into politics. Otherwise, it's just like Bollywood movies where you go through the your father's name or anybody else. So in Nepal also the scenario is similar. You get there because of your father's name or how your forefathers have contributed in the political in that political party. So for now, I think that political parties have gave no other option other than getting into student politics, now that I think of it. So I think we have to get into student politics and student unions.
Yes, indeed. Moving on, what exactly would you say is a meaningful involvement of women in politics? And what has been the most difficult aspect of ensuring that while educating women in politics? In the context of Nepal, how would you say the scenario of meaningful involvement of women in politics evolved over time?
Okay, meaningful participation of women, हामी चाहिँ के भन्छौँ भने राष्ट्र र समग्र नेपाली जनताको विकासको निम्ति महिलाको अर्थपूर्ण राजनीतिक सहभागिता भन्छौँ हैन. So now if you will go back and look to the recent situation, जब कि यो border issues को बारेमा जब कुरा हुँदै थियो, त्यो border issues को बेलामा look at panel discussions that happened. Look at the panel discussions that happened. Women were not included even in very rich media houses को त्यो त्यति बेलाको डिबेट्सहरु हुन्थ्यो नि regarding the border issues. त्यति बेला women were not involved other than Sarita Giri. If Sarita Giri would not have created that controversy, I'm sure that no women participation would have been in those television shows as well. So what is happening in terms of political participation of women, as I said in my presentation earlier, it's a compulsion. In panel discussions, women's pictures are kept so that the organizers don't have to go through this whole hoax of people commenting and saying where is women participation or hashtag Manal. So the situation is, in this scenario, in the context of Nepal, what is happening is women are given places in panels, women are given in different political party structures, the spaces are given because so that they can at least show that there is women in table. It's not because they hear their opinions when they are in table. So what we are working for, or what meaningful participation in politics actually mean, is representation does not equal participation. Participation means involving women in activities, not only having their photos, not only giving their posts, but actually including them in the development processes. I'll give you a very good example of that. For example, in recent elections, in local government, as I talked before as well, there's 40.9% representation of women in local government, right? But when the budget of local government is made in any wards, when budget is made, when different programs are introduced, Dalit women, they are not even called in meeting. The paper goes to their office, their houses. The paper goes to their house and they just sign it. They are not involved in the process. And this is what we are advocating for. Those Dalit women should be brought to the ward office to discuss about budget, to discuss about programs and policies. But right now what is happening is they are given posts, but they are not getting involved in planning, in different aspects. Look at our prime minister's, the COVID-19 response team. When he formed initially, there was no women participation in, the prime minister's the COVID-19 response high-level committee. So this kind of shows, it's just a hoax. There are a lot of disagreements. There might be a lot of disagreements in this, but I sincerely urge, look at the committees that are formed during COVID-19 response. There are limited women's participation in this purposes as well. So this is what we are acting for. Even in this pandemic situation, when we need women's participation the most, when we need to know about women's problems as well, those committees do not even comprise of women. So this is kind of the thing that we are advocating for. Women should be included during the work, not only to form committees. So that is what we are advocating for.
Moving forward, I would like to put forward some questions from our audience too, so that we can know that their involvement is also precious. We can keep in concern that. So moving forward, I would like to take the question from Miss Samiksha. She has raised her question in this way. From what age do you think political literacy should be provided to the next generation citizen of Nepal? Likewise, she has also raised her queries that do you think political literacy should be a part of education through primary education?
Can you please repeat the first question? I got the second question, but first question is a little bit difficult.
The first question was, from what age do you think political literacy should be provided to the next generation of our country?
Yes, that is a very interesting question, and right now we are running a project on it, right? So now what we are doing is we are looking at the school curriculum that different schools teach, boarding schools, at the same time government schools as well. We are looking into the curriculum. We have just started that project. So what we have seen is there should definitely be the curriculum related to political literacy in in higher schools from 8, 9, 10, in grades such as 8, 9, 10, and there is some kind of element as well. We have learned about democracy and a lot of things, but we have not been introduced to politics, as we talked before, right? So what is politics? We have never really studied it. So I think that aspect should also be introduced, definitely. What I have also understood over the period of time, and now that I look back to my educational curriculum that I studied, I never had women powerful characters. We only had characters of women as supporting roles even in the stories that we read. We never read about a lot of, we never read about women parliamentarians or women ministers who have really struggled hard. When we talk, we definitely learned about BP Koirala. We learned about a lot of ministers, a lot of, when we even read about the martyrs, it was all men. Do you remember those chapters with all those pictures and little bit of biography in social studies? I remember that. We never really had women. I only remember reading about Rajya Lakshmi. That was only story that I read about women, in politics or women in leadership as a whole. So we need to have more powerful women characters beginning from, KGs or kindergarten. We need to have women as protagonists in the stories that we read in school. Naturally, when growing up, girls are a little bit more organized person. So looking at the characteristic of biologically, girls should have been better leaders, but over the time we craft in their brain in such a way that leadership should be given to men. Or I still remember there used to be a lot of girl prefects rather than boy prefects in school, but later when they grow up, they don't really see themselves in very stronger positions or in leadership position, because in educational curriculum we have not really introduced powerful women, which we actually have. It's not that we don't have it. When we even look at the history of feminist movement, we can't find biographies of women who have really worked hard during the feminist movement or in Rana regime. There are a lot of people who come to me debating about the fact that women showed up in politics later, so it's obvious that there will be less women politicians or less women parliamentarians. But I can talk with you guys with evidences that even in the first movement that happened against Rana regime, there were 5 women who were arrested during that time. We talk a lot about those kind of riots and people's movement. We have talked about a lot of ministers, that a lot of young activists and young male politicians who really contributed in those civil wars and movements, but we have not really talked about the women organizations that actually contributed. So we need to include these kind of curriculums in school, so that young girl who is the head girl, who is the prefect of her class, or anybody who is studying in school can actually visualize themselves as leaders. It's all about the role model theory. If you can't see somebody of similar nature who looks like you as a leader, you can't imagine yourself as a leader. So we need to definitely work on the curriculum and make it more gender neutral in terms of leadership, or have more women and other groups, LGBTQI group as well, even in leadership position, because young children now need to understand that leadership is for all and not for only men.
Thank you for that. Moving forward, I would like to place forward another question. Attitude towards women candidates are still characterized by deeply ingrained stereotypes, and political opponents will often use those stereotypes to question women's capabilities. What do you have to say on this? Are you satisfied with the current representation of females in the politics of Nepal? What would be the next approaches of political literacy for women in this regard?
Okay, so first thing first, I don't think it is fair for us to keep higher bars for women parliamentarians and have lower bars for male parliamentarians. Male parliamentarians and male politicians have equally, messed the politics of Nepal. So why are we keeping higher standards for women when women started going to schools and colleges later? Look at the educational levels of women parliamentarians and politicians that are in parliament right now. How can you expect them to perform to your standards? And why are all of us keeping higher standards for women and lower standards for men, when in terms of representation, in terms of representing us in parliament, they should be treated with equal bars, but we are keeping higher bar for women, and that is where the discrimination is in our mentality as well. Being young people, educated people, advocating for women's rights, asking this question itself is the example of how misogyny has ingrained in our heads. So that is the example. But I'm so glad that you asked this question in terms of how the situation can be improved. Property rights, look at the property rights. Now, even in the empowerment sector, धेरै NGOs, INGOs चाहिँ गाउँमा गएर के गर्नुहुन्छ भने आजभोलि सिलाइ बुनाइ सिकाउनुहुन्छ एज अ पार्ट अफ एम्पावरमेन्ट हैन। सिलाइ बुनाइ सकाएपछि के हुन्छ भन्दाखेरि सिलाइ बुनाइमा निर्भर हुनको लागि त बैंकबाट लोन पाउनु पर्यो नि त हैन। लोन पाउनको लागि धितो राख्नु पर्यो, धितो राख्नको लागि हामीसँग प्रपर्टी राइट्स आको कति नै भएर हैन। So women parliamentarians don't have, women politicians don't have that level of economic के भन्ने support, economic back support. त्यो कारणले गर्दाखेरि पनि FPTP बाट धेरै कम महिलाहरू लड्नु भएको छ. When you look at the the journey of Puspa Bhusal, she is the whip of Nepali Congress right now. But if you go and talk with her and listen to her story, there are instances in her life where she have not fought direct elections because she didn't have money or other aspects. Yeah, right. So there is different standards for women and men. It's not only about giving equal opportunities, but also about creating equal environment. So when we expect something out of women, we also should make sure that there is equal environment created. It's not only about equal opportunities inside politics or in any sector. If you say that you have given opportunities of women but they are not performing better, have we thought about the environment? Have we thought about the financial aspects? Have we thought about the social aspects? So these are the things that we need to consider. Please, all of us, I'd love all of you would think about it in terms of giving opportunities. It's not only about giving equal opportunities, it's also about creating equal environment for everybody. So that is what we need to think about deeply. And in terms of the other question was regarding the how women are portrayed in media, or how women are seen as
No,
am I right with that question?
question was with regard to attitude towards women candidates are largely characterized by deeply ingrained stereotypes. So in this regard, what do you think?
Yes, there is no thinking into it. It's definite that they do it, right? So if you are a women politician, if you do something, then you have to dress a certain way, you have to look a certain way, you have to act a certain way. There are a lot of standards for women, and those kind of stereotypes have been happening. When we look at the arguments made by Sarita Giri, definitely I don't stand for it, but the comments that are made in terms of her personal life, even when the candidates run for elections, I think now probably the election will come, maybe, I don't know, the government might have local elections or might not have as well, but all of you please look into the news articles that are published about women candidates at the time and men candidates at the time. When the profiles are written about women candidates, it's always about who is she married to, and then where does she come from, and the news are about how many boyfriends she had. Even I have seen this news where there was a women parliamentarian running in some part of Nepal, and the news was written about how she had a Muslim boyfriend and she was a Hindu. So these are the kind of news that kind of comes around us. So there are different standards for men and women.
अगाडि बढिने क्रममा हाम्रो अडियन्सको नि फेरि क्वेसन लिन चाहे मैले। हाम्रो श्री राजवंशीजीले आफ्नो जिज्ञासा राख्नु भएको छ पोलिटिकल लिटरेसी फर वुमेनको सन्दर्भमा। Who are the professional giving political education in your organization?
Okay.
उहाँले भन्नु यसै क्रममा मैले अर्को प्रश्न पनि जोड्न चाहे। उहाँले भन्नुभएको छ तपाईँ आफैले पनि एउटा फर्मल पोलिटिकल एजुकेसन प्र्याक्टिकल नलेज लिनुभएको नहुन सक्छ। यसै सन्दर्भमा कसरी चाहिँ कोर्सहरू डेभलप भइरहेको छ, हाउ इज द नलेज इम्पार्टेड भन्ने कुरा उहाँले राख्नु भएको छ।
यस, भेरी गुड क्वेसन एन्ड वी आर भेरी कन्सियस अबाउट इट। मैले पढाउँदिन, मैले म्यानेज मात्रै गर्ने हो, मान्छेहरू बोलाउने हो, आइडिया निकाल्ने हो। आई एम जस्ट द एक्जिक्युसन पार्ट, बट द टिचर्स द्याट वी हेभ आर रेन्जिङ फ्रम सुशीला कार्की हरसेल्फ टु विभिन्न राइटर्सहरू जो चाहिँ विभिन्न के भन्छ यो राजनीति विषय, राजनीति शास्त्र नै पढ्नुभएका विद्यार्थीहरू होइन, राजनीतिका विश्लेषकहरू विश्लेषण गर्नुहुन्छ उहाँहरू, त्यो सँगसँगै पुष्पा भुषाल, बिन्दा पाण्डे, उहाँहरू नै आएर पढाउने हो। इट्स द पार्लियामेन्टेरियन्स एन्ड ल मेकर्स हु कम्स एन्ड टिच, इट्स नट अस। आई एम जस्ट द आइडिया क्रिएटर एन्ड द अर्गनाइजर अफ अ लट अफ थिङ्स। द्याट इज अल आई एम डुइङ।
Thank you for that. As we are almost to the end of today's TEDcast organized by TEDxMaitighar, it would be unjust if we would not mention about the Harvard journey. So how was Harvard? How have your views on the women representation evolved through the years? Does Harvard play a huge role in shaping how you feel about women representation in Nepal?
Okay, thank you so much for that question. I still get being a kid from middle class family, Harvard is everybody's dream, I think. But I learned executive course. So, it's not that I went there and studied bachelor's or master's. I did my executive course, but still having that Harvard name associated with you is something that is very humbling experience. But at the same time, it's like ल के गरे मैले जस्तो खालको एउटा त्यो सर्टिफिकेसन आफूलाई दिने ठाउँ जस्तो हैन। सो आई वाज द यंगेस्ट एन्ड आई डिडन्ट हैव अ लट अफ कन्फिडेन्स व्हाइल अप्लाइङ फर इट, टु बी भेरी भेरी फ्र्याङ्क। बट हामी नेपालीहरुको बानी कस्तो हुन्छ भने नि, वी डोन्ट अप्लाई फर थिङ्स क्या, वी नो दैट वी आर केपेबल बट वी सेल्फ डाउट सो मच दैट वी डोन्ट रियली अप्लाई। सो आई न्यू अबाउट दिस अपर्च्युनिटी अ year back, but I didn't apply for it because I was not confident. But I wrote my form with utmost honesty. nothing else. When the form was there, I didn't have anybody who would vouch for me or anything such as that. I just applied there with political literacy for women idea, but I applied in that course and I got full scholarship आएको मैले. अनि त्यो पढ्दाखेरि चाहिँ now that I look back to the form, I have written things that I should not have written, but it was with deep honesty, because I was so sure that I will not get it, but I wrote with deep honesty and everything, and I think that honesty is what got me into Harvard and the scholarship as well. So all the young people applying for Ivy League and stuff, I'm also applying for Ivy for my master's. I'm waiting for it, but apply for things. You will not know, you might get it. So apply for things. You will not know unless you apply for it. So Harvard experience was very good because अनि त्यो हार्वर्ड पढिसकेपछि मैले नेपालमा आएर यहाँ पनि मैले सिमिलर कोर्सेसहरु सञ्चालन गरे किन भन्दाखेरि I wanted to give young people the Harvard experience. या भनौं बेस्ट क्वालिटी एजुकेसन कस्तो हुँदो रहेछ भनेर नेपालीहरुले चाहिँ एक्सपिरियन्स पाओस् या भनौं आफ्नै साथीहरुले एक्सपिरियन्स पाओस् भनेर I did a course as well, हैन. तर त्यहाँनेर चाहिँ what I learned was everybody was so humbling and everybody listens to each other, which does not happen in Nepali platforms. Everybody listens to each other. So I was the youngest and the oldest person was like probably 80, 82, right? So both of us, when I spoke, she was listening. So what we need to, I think I learned from them was to listen to each other. And the next thing that I learned was it's difficult to read. We have to read. There is no alternative. पढ्नुको कुनै विकल्प नै छैन. यो बीचमा एकदमै धेरै इन्स्टाग्राम कल्चरमा रिडिङ इज नट इम्पोर्टेन्ट या भनौं ट्यालेन्टलाई धेरै हामीले प्रायोरिटाइज गर्न थाल्यौं. त्यसपछि चाहिँ पढ्नु खासै इम्पोर्टेन्ट होइन भन्ने खालको मुभीहरु आउन थाल्यो हैन. But when I went there, it kind of gave me a reality check regarding पढ्नु चाहिँ पर्ने रहेछ है, नपढिकन केही हुँदैन भनेर चाहिँ I think that kind of gave me a reality check. So that was my Harvard experience.
सत्य तितो हुन्छ तर मिठै हुन्छ भन्ने कुराको बुलन्द उदाहरण चाहिँ हजुरको यो जर्नीबाट नै पाउन सकिन्छ भन्ने कुरा पनि मैले यहाँ सबैमाझ राख्न चाहे. Last but not the least, where will we see Miss Prakriti Bhattarai Basnet in upcoming 5 years?
Okay, so I am very ambitious, right? So one thing that I want to do is have a very good office of political literacy for women, which can cater a lot of girls. That is one thing that I dream of. We don't have office till now. So in probably 5 years, I will have a good office of political literacy for women. And I will have networks all across Nepal because हामी अहिलेसम्म internet access भएको मेरो उमेरको केटीहरुसँग मात्रै पुग्न सफल भएछौं हैन. But now I want to go and grow, go into and I want to create a system inside political literacy for women. म नभए पनि कोही अरूले लिड गर्न सकोस् किनभने यो एउटा संस्था हैन, यो क्याम्पेन हो हैन. यहाँनेर जसले पनि आएर काम गर्न सकोस्. सो त्यो पुस्तान्तरण हुन्छ नि लिडरशिपमा, त्यो पुस्तान्तरण म गर्न चाहन्छु. त्यसको लागि ग्रुम गराउन चाहन्छु. 5 वर्ष डाउन द लाइन I won't be the chairperson of political literacy for women. I want somebody else to be. But till then मैले political literacy for women हस्तान्तरण गर्दै गर्दाखेरि I want to have a system inside political literacy for women. I want to have a proper office and a network all across Nepal, and I want to train more than 5,000 girls regarding basics of politics. So that is my aim. And personally, I think I want to do 5 times more scuba, and I want to get into Ivy League for my master's. So that is my personal goal. So these two are my personal goals for right now. And maybe COVID will go and I can travel to more places. So yes.
अब अगाडि बढ्ने क्रममै म आजको यस कार्यक्रमको फाइनल प्रश्न राख्न चाहे ऑडियन्सबाट नै. हाम्रो मिस ईशा दाहालजीले राख्नु भएको छ पोलिटिकल पावर भन्ने कुरा दिने हैन लिने, अझ नेपालको सन्दर्भमा खोसिने कुरा हो. यस अर्थमा चाहिँ अहिले जो पनि पोलिटिक्समा सक्रिय हुनुहुन्छ, म महिलाहरूको अवस्थाको बारेमा हजुरलाई के भन्नु छ? उहाँहरूले चाहिँ किन पावरमा बस्न सक्नु भएन, पावरमा आउन सक्नु भएन जस्तो लाग्छ?
हामी भन्दा अघिल्लो पुस्ताको महिलाहरूले धेरै गर्नु भएको छ. 33% हाम्रो लागि ल्याइदिनु भयो हैन देशको 5 वटा मध्ये 3 वटा मेजर पोजिसनमा वुमेनहरु पुग्नु भएको छ सो हामीले उहाँहरुसँग यु नो हामी एज अ जेनेरेसन ल्याक गरेको हामी भन्दा अगाडिको जेनेरेसन ल्याक गरेको होइन त्यो चाहिँ हामीले एकदमै धेरै बुझ्न जरुरी छ महिलाले इट्स जस्ट दैट मिडिया र अरु कुराहरुले यसको बारेमा नबोलेको मात्रै हो गएर बिन्दा पाण्डेको बारेमा पढ्नुस् पुष्पा भुसालको बारेमा पढ्नुस् हैन त्यो जमानामा डाइरेक्ट इलेक्सन्स लडेको मान्छेहरुको बारेमा पढ्नुस् उहाँहरुले हामी भन्दा अघिल्लो पुस्ताले हरेक मुद्दालाई राजनीतिसँग जोड्यो हरेक महिलाको मुद्दालाई राजनीतिसँग जोड्यो तर हाम्रो पुस्तासँग त्यो आउँदै गर्दाखेरि निर्मलाको जब त्यो के भन्छ आन्दोलन भएको थियो माइती घरमा त्यति बेला मान्छेहरुको प्रेजेन्स हेर्नुस् हैन र राणाकालमा 2 जना महिलाहरुको चाहिँ रेप हुँदाखेरि चाहिँ त्यति बेला कति जना महिला चाहिँ टुडी खेलमा आएका थिए र अहिले कति जना महिला चाहिँ माइती घरमा आएका थिए हेर्दाखेरि राणाकालको बेलामा धेरै महिलाहरु आएको छन् यदि पिक्चरहरुमा तपाईहरु गएर हेर्नुहुन्छ भने हैन सो दे एज अ जेनेरेसन हैव not failed we have failed because we are not coming into politics so हामीले चाहिँ पढ्न जरुरी छ उहाँहरुको बारेमा सुशीला कार्कीको बारेमा पढ्नुस् इभन विद्यादेवी भण्डारीको बारेमा पढ्नुस् उहाँहरुले कति धेरै चाहिँ महिला आन्दोलनमा कति धेरै उहाँले चाहिँ कन्ट्रिब्युट गर्नु भएको छ भनेर सो लेट्स रीड अबाउट देम एन्ड आई वान्ट टु अर्ज अल मिडियाज एज वेल टु राइट अबाउट देम बिकज यङ गर्ल्स लाइक अस नीड inspiration and they are already an inspiration it's just that we don't know about them they have done a lot they yesto desh janera chai we are the youngest federal democracy euta youngest federal democracy ma 33% reservation ल्याउनु भनेको सानो तिनो कुरा होइन त्यही भएर चाहिँ हामीले यो कदमलाई सराहनीय मानेर अबको जेनेरेसनले चाहिँ उहाँहरुबाट पढ्न सिक्न जरुरी छ सो आई डोन्ट थिंक दे have failed as a generation.
Thank you, all the viewers, for joining with us today. We greatly appreciate your presence and we certainly hope you got to a lot from our speakers. You got to learn a lot. I hope that. We would also like to express our gratitude to Miss Prakriti Bhattarai Basnet for giving us your valuable time and sharing your invaluable experience with us. If there is any concluding remarks or thought that you would like to tell our viewers, please.
Okay, the concluding remarks is पढ्नुस् हामी कम पढ्छौं नेपालीहरु हैन हामी एकदमै कम पढ्न थालेछौं हामी भन्दा अघिल्लो जेनेरेसनले धेरै पढ्नुहुन्थ्यो आफ्नो आफ्नो फिल्डको बारेमा पढ्नुस् र राजनीतिक चेतना भनेको म जहिले पनि भन्ने गर्छु पोलिटिकल लिटरेसी भनेको राजनीतिक सशक्तिकरण या भनौं राजनीतिक साक्षरता भनेको नेता बन्नको लागि मात्रै होइन नेत्री बन्नको लागि मात्रै होइन एउटा सक्षम नागरिक बन्नको लागि पनि तपाईले राजनीति बुझ्नै पर्ने हुन्छ हैन सो इट्स नट दैट इट्स बिकज you want to get into politics but it's because you have to be a good citizen in order to be a good citizen you have to know about the politics that is happening so learn more study more I'm also trying to study more puri janne bhako and I'm just similar to your age so I'm also studying let's study about our sector our field and enhance our knowledge at the same time learn a lot about socio-political issues yes that is my ending remarks thank you and have fun
Thank you. Once again, thank you so much. We truly are humbled to have you with us. It indeed was amazing hearing from you. With that, we have come to the end of today's second session for TEDcast hosted by TEDxMaitighar. We would also like to share with you all about TED Circles, which is a closed circle discussion on various TED Talks in theme. We'll be hosting TED Circles regularly. Do check out the comment section in which we will be providing link and other more information. Last but not the least, thank you all for joining with us today. We truly hope you enjoyed the discussion as much as we did. Namaste and goodbye everyone. It's your host for today signing off from the second session of TEDcast hosted by TEDxMaitighar.